Jack Turner, a 90-year-old Air Force veteran, had spent most of his life serving his country and community. In his youth, Jack had been a proud member of the Air Force, dedicating his years to defending the freedom and values he held dear. He served with honor, making sacrifices and witnessing the hardships of war firsthand. Decades after his military service, Jack found himself living alone in a modest house in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, with only memories of his past to keep him company. Jack's life was far from easy. Despite his dedication to his country, retirement was not the peaceful rest he had imagined. His days were now filled with laborious work as a cart attendant at a local grocery store. It was a job he had been doing for over 20 years, a job that demanded both physical strength and perseverance. Every day, he would walk up and down the parking lot, collecting carts left scattered by shoppers. On this sweltering Memorial Day, the temperature had soared to 111 degrees Fahrenheit. The sun blazed down mercilessly, making the asphalt feel like molten lava beneath his worn-out shoes. But for Jack, it was just another day of pushing carts to make ends meet. Jack's financial situation was dire. The Social Security benefits he received each month amounted to only $1,200, a far cry from the $2,500 he needed to cover his basic expenses, including rent, utilities, and medical bills. Despite his frail frame and thinning gray hair, Jack braved the extreme weather and physical demands of his job with sheer determination. He refused to let his age define him or his circumstances defeat him. "If I stop working, I stop living," he often told himself, a mantra that kept him going when things felt unbearable. The truth was, Jack's reality was heartbreaking. He was a war hero who had once fought for the freedoms of others, but now he struggled to keep a roof over his head and food on the table. His body ached from years of hard labor, his hands were calloused, and his back was perpetually sore. Yet, he never complained. Jack was proud, and he had always believed in the value of hard work. He would rather work himself to exhaustion than ask for help. In his mind, he had always been the protector, the one who provided for others. The thought of relying on someone else was unbearable. Every morning, Jack would rise before dawn, put on his faded work uniform, and make his way to the grocery store. He would greet the employees with a polite nod, never wanting to be a bother, and get to work before the sun had fully risen. By mid-morning, the heat would become oppressive, but Jack soldiered on, pushing long lines of carts with steady hands. Shoppers would come and go, most not even glancing his way, unaware of the story behind the old man collecting their carts. But Jack wasn't invisible to everyone. There were a few people who took notice, who saw beyond the tired eyes and wrinkled skin. Some of the grocery store employees admired Jack's dedication, but they, too, had their struggles and couldn't do much to help. It seemed like Jack was destined to continue this cycle, unnoticed and unappreciated, until fate decided otherwise. On this particular Memorial Day, Jack's routine was interrupted. As he pushed a line of carts across the lot, sweat dripping from his brow, a stranger watched from a distance. Emma Dawson, a retired journalist from New Orleans, had stopped at the grocery store on her way through Baton Rouge. She had come to pick up a few items, but as she stepped out of her car, she noticed Jack. His hunched figure, the determination in his movements despite the brutal heat, caught her attention. Something about the elderly man struck a chord deep within her. Emma was known for her empathy and her strong sense of justice. She had spent years covering stories of resilience and hardship, but what she saw in Jack moved her in a way she hadn't expected. He reminded her of her own grandfather, who had also been a veteran, a proud man who worked tirelessly to provide for his family, even when his body began to fail him. Emma watched as Jack paused for a moment, resting his hands on the handle of a cart, his face lined with exhaustion. She could see the toll it was taking on him, and she couldn't just walk away. Initially, Emma hesitated. She wasn't sure if approaching Jack was the right thing to do. People had their pride, and she didn't want to offend him. But as she loaded her groceries into her car, the image of Jack's hunched figure wouldn't leave her mind. She felt a strong pull to do something, anything to help. Emma whispered a simple prayer. "If I'm meant to help, show me how." With that, she made up her mind. She turned her car around, determined to learn more about the man who had unknowingly captured her heart. Emma approached Jack cautiously, her voice gentle as she introduced herself. Jack looked up, surprised but polite. She asked him why he was working on Memorial Day, a day meant to honor people like him. Jack's response was humble yet heart-wrenching. "I'm here to earn enough to eat." He spoke of his financial difficulties, his lack of nearby family, and his relentless spirit to keep moving forward despite the odds stacked against him. Emma left that conversation deeply moved. She knew she had to act, but she wanted to do more than just offer a temporary fix. She wanted to honor Jack's service and ensure he had the security and comfort he deserved in his golden years. Unbeknownst to Jack, that simple encounter was about to change his life in ways he could never have imagined. The wheels of fate had begun to turn, and a new chapter in Jack Turner's life was about to unfold, one filled with hope, kindness, and the recognition he had long been denied. Emma Dawson, a retired journalist from New Orleans, was on a routine grocery run when she spotted Jack Turner in the parking lot. Emma, known for her strong sense of justice and deep empathy, couldn't ignore the sight of the elderly man struggling under the scorching sun. His uniform-like precision with the carts, his quiet perseverance, and the lines of exhaustion etched on his face struck a chord in her heart. Initially, Emma hesitated. She loaded her groceries into her car and prepared to leave, but the image of Jack's hunched figure wouldn't leave her mind. She found herself replaying the scene in her head. The way Jack pushed those carts, his frail frame braving the sweltering heat. Emma could feel her heart tugging at her, urging her to do something. She whispered a simple prayer. "If I'm meant to help, show me how." With a renewed sense of purpose, she turned her car around, determined to learn more about the man who had unknowingly captured her heart. Emma approached Jack cautiously, her voice soft but filled with concern as she introduced herself. Jack looked up, his eyes tired but polite. She asked him why he was working on Memorial Day, a day meant to honor veterans like him. Jack's response was humble yet heartbreaking. "I'm here to earn enough to eat." He spoke of his financial struggles, how his Social Security income fell woefully short of covering his expenses, his lack of nearby family, and his relentless spirit to keep moving forward despite all the obstacles. As Jack spoke, Emma could feel her eyes welling up. Here was a man who had given everything for his country, and now, in his twilight years, he was left to fend for himself in such grueling conditions. Jack's words were laced with humility, but Emma could hear the unspoken exhaustion behind them, the quiet resignation of a man who had accepted his circumstances but never stopped fighting. It was that determination, that refusal to give up, that moved Emma more than anything. Emma left the grocery store that day with more than just groceries. She left with a purpose. She couldn't shake the feeling that something had to be done. Offering Jack a few dollars or a hot meal would only be a temporary fix. What Jack needed was security, the kind that would allow him to finally rest and enjoy the years he had left. Emma wanted to honor Jack's service and give him the dignity he so clearly deserved. That night, Emma sat at her kitchen table, her laptop open in front of her. She thought back to her years as a journalist, telling the stories of people whose voices often went unheard. Jack was one of those people, a hero whose story deserved to be told. With determination, Emma began typing, crafting a post that would soon be shared far and wide. She wrote about Jack's life of service, his dedication, and the hardships he faced now. She included a picture she had taken of Jack, his frail figure pushing a line of carts under the relentless sun, and she set up a GoFundMe page with the goal of raising enough money to help Jack retire comfortably. The next morning, Emma uploaded the post to social media. She had no idea what kind of response to expect, but she hoped that people would be moved by Jack's story, just as she had been. Within hours, her post began gaining traction. Shares, comments, and donations poured in from people all over the country. Strangers expressed their admiration for Jack's resilience and their outrage at the circumstances he was in. Veterans and civilians alike wanted to help, and the GoFundMe campaign quickly surpassed its initial goal. When Emma received the notification that the campaign had reached $25,000, she felt a sense of disbelief and overwhelming joy. She knew she had to tell Jack. She drove back to the grocery store, hoping to find him there. When she spotted Jack, still pushing carts in the heat, she waved him over. Jack approached her cautiously, unsure of what to expect. "Jack," Emma said, her voice trembling with emotion. "You're not going to believe this, but people from all over have heard your story. They've donated money, enough for you to finally take a break." Jack looked at her, confusion and disbelief etched on his face. Emma explained about the GoFundMe campaign, the thousands of people who had come together to help him. Jack was speechless. He had spent so many years relying only on himself that the idea of strangers coming together to support him seemed almost impossible. His eyes filled with tears as Emma continued, "You don't have to do this anymore, Jack. You can rest. People care about you, and they want to help." Jack wiped his eyes, his voice breaking as he spoke. "I don't know what to say. I've never asked for help, but thank you. Thank you to everyone who cared enough to do this." Emma knew this was just the beginning. She wasn't just going to walk away now that the money had been raised. She was determined to make sure Jack had everything he needed: comfortable housing, medical care, and the peace of mind that had eluded him for so long. As they stood there in the parking lot, with cars moving around them and the sun still blazing, Emma realized that this chance encounter was no accident. It was the start of something much bigger, a journey of hope, compassion, and the power of human kindness. That evening, Emma sat at her kitchen table, her laptop open and her heart full. She knew Jack's story needed to be told, and she was the one to tell it. Emma recorded a video recounting Jack's life, his years of service to the Air Force, his sacrifices, and the struggles he faced now, in his old age. She spoke with passion, her voice trembling at times as she described the sight of Jack pushing shopping carts under the blazing Louisiana sun, just to make ends meet. "This is Jack Turner," she began, holding up a photo of Jack, his frail figure hunched over the long line of carts. "Jack is a 90-year-old veteran who served our country with honor. But today, Jack isn't resting comfortably like he deserves. Today, he's pushing carts at a grocery store just to afford food and shelter. He's given so much for us, and now it's time we give something back to him." Emma set up a GoFundMe page with an initial goal of $25,000 to help Jack retire comfortably. She shared the link in her post and encouraged her friends and followers to contribute if they could. She clicked post, then sat back, praying that her words had reached someone, anyone, who could help. The response was overwhelming. Within hours, donations began pouring in from people across the nation. Veterans, active duty service members, and civilians alike were touched by Jack's story. Many left heartfelt messages of gratitude and admiration for his service. The campaign went viral, spreading like wildfire across social media platforms. It wasn't just about the money. It was about a community coming together to honor a hero who had been forgotten. Messages of encouragement and thanks flooded the comments section of Emma's post. "My grandfather was a veteran too," one comment read. "He would have been heartbroken to see another hero struggling like this. I'm donating in his memory." Another donor wrote, "Jack's resilience is an inspiration. He deserves to live out his years in peace, not in hardship." The GoFundMe page quickly surpassed its original goal, reaching $50,000 in just 24 hours, then skyrocketing to $200,000 within 48 hours. Emma could hardly believe what she was seeing. She refreshed the page over and over, watching as the number climbed higher. The generosity of people astounded her. She knew she had to tell Jack, but she also knew that he might be skeptical. After all, he had spent so many years depending only on himself, never expecting help from anyone. The next morning, Emma called Jack. When he answered, his voice was wary. "Mr. Turner, it's Emma," she began. "I have some incredible news to share." She told him about the GoFundMe campaign and the hundreds of thousands of dollars that had been raised for him. Jack was silent at first. He struggled to grasp the reality of what Emma was telling him. Years of self-reliance had made him cautious about accepting help, and he found it hard to believe that so many people, strangers, would want to help him. Seeing Jack's hesitation, Emma knew she needed backup. She reached out to Sheriff Tom Reynolds, a trusted figure in the community who had known Jack for years. Sheriff Reynolds was more than willing to help. Together, they drove to Jack's modest house, a place that reflected years of hard work but also years of wear and tear. Jack greeted them at the door, his expression both curious and apprehensive. Sheriff Reynolds spoke first, his voice kind but firm. "Jack, what Emma is telling you is true. The community came together for you. They've raised over $200,000 to help you retire comfortably. This is real, my friend. You don't have to struggle anymore." Jack looked from Sheriff Reynolds to Emma, his eyes misting over. "Why would they do this for me?" he asked, his voice cracking. Emma stepped closer, placing her hand gently on his shoulder. "Because you deserve it, Jack. You've given everything for this country. It's time for us to give something back to you." Tears streamed down Jack's face. He had spent so many years in quiet endurance, never imagining that anyone would notice his struggle, let alone care enough to help. "I've never seen anything like this," he whispered, his voice thick with emotion. "People still care. They really care." The following days were a whirlwind of change for Jack. Emma helped him set up meetings with financial advisors to ensure the money was used wisely, securing him comfortable housing and access to proper medical care. Jack was able to pay off his debts, fix up his home, and most importantly, he no longer had to push carts in the sweltering heat. For the first time in years, Jack could rest. But Jack didn't just take the money and retreat from the world. He wanted to give back. He donated a portion of the funds to local veterans organizations, wanting to help others who were in the same position he had been. He also gave a generous donation to the neighborhood church that had supported him with food donations when times were tough. Jack's spirit of giving had not diminished. If anything, it had grown stronger. The local news soon picked up Jack's story, and before long, it had spread across the country. People were inspired by Jack's resilience and Emma's determination to make a difference. The story became a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in times of division, people could come together for a common good. Jack appeared on a local news broadcast, where he expressed his gratitude to everyone who had contributed. "I never thought I'd see the day," Jack said, his voice filled with emotion. "Thank you to every single person who gave me a chance to rest. I'm forever grateful." Emma, too, found herself overwhelmed by the kindness that had emerged from her simple desire to help. She had always believed in the power of storytelling, but this experience reinforced just how impactful one story could be. "This isn't just about Jack," she said during an interview. "It's about all of us. It's about the way we choose to see each other, to help each other." Jack's story reminds us that no one should be left behind, especially not those who have given so much. In the weeks that followed, the community continued to rally around Jack. Local businesses offered their support, free meals, home repairs, and even part-time work that Jack could do if he ever felt like staying active. Jack found himself surrounded by people who cared, people who had once been strangers but were now friends. Jack Turner, the 90-year-old veteran who had once pushed carts in the Louisiana heat to survive, was now living comfortably, his heart full of gratitude. He spent his days visiting with neighbors, volunteering at the church, and sharing his story with anyone who would listen. He often said that the greatest gift he had received wasn't the money. It was the knowledge that people still cared. Jack's story became a beacon of hope, proof that no matter how tough things got, there were always people willing to step up and make a difference. And for Emma, the experience had been life-changing. She had set out to help one man, but in doing so, she had reminded an entire community, and even a nation, of the power of compassion. "We're all in this together," Emma said, reflecting on the journey. "When we choose to see each other, really see each other, we can create miracles." And that's what this was, a miracle born from kindness. With the funds raised, Jack Turner was finally able to pay off his debts and secure a comfortable place to live. For the first time in years, Jack felt a sense of peace and stability that had long been absent from his life. The weight that had been pressing on his shoulders for decades seemed to lift as he stepped into his new apartment, a place he could truly call home. The small, cozy space was more than just a roof over his head. It was a symbol of all the love and support that had come his way from people he had never even met. Jack's spirit of giving remained unshaken despite his newfound fortune. He believed that he had been blessed beyond measure and that it was now his turn to pay it forward. Jack decided to donate a portion of the funds to local veterans organizations and his neighborhood church, both of which had provided him with crucial support during his toughest years. "Others need help too," Jack said with a smile. "I've been blessed. It's time to pay it forward." Emma Dawson continued to stay involved in Jack's life, helping him navigate his newfound stability. She wanted to make sure that he had everything he needed, not just financially, but also emotionally. Emma made it her mission to help Jack access healthcare, something that had been previously out of his reach due to his limited income. She made sure that he could see a doctor, get the prescriptions he needed, and receive the care he had long neglected. Their friendship blossomed, and Emma often visited Jack to share meals, listen to his stories, and enjoy his company. They had become family, two people brought together by fate and bonded by compassion. Despite having the means to retire completely, Jack chose to continue working part-time at the grocery store. He no longer worked out of necessity, but rather out of a desire to stay active and connected to the world around him. "It's not about the money anymore," Jack explained to Emma one afternoon over coffee. "It's about staying active and connecting with people. Work gives me purpose." Jack cherished the simple interactions with shoppers and colleagues, finding joy in being part of something beyond himself. The grocery store had become more than a workplace. It was a community, and Jack loved being a part of it. Jack's story began to spread, inspiring others in the community. People were moved by his resilience and touched by Emma's determination to make a difference. Local businesses took notice and started initiatives to support elderly workers. Programs were created to help veterans in need, and Jack's experience was used as a beacon of hope for others facing similar struggles. Several veterans came forward to share their own stories of hardship, and the community rallied around them, offering support and assistance in ways that hadn't been done before. Jack became somewhat of a local celebrity, though he never sought fame or recognition. People would stop him at the grocery store to shake his hand or offer a kind word. Children would come up to him, wide-eyed, as their parents told them that Jack was a real-life hero. Jack always smiled and took the time to talk to each person who approached him. He understood that it wasn't just about him. It was about what his story represented. It was a reminder that, even in the darkest of times, there was still good in the world and that people could come together to create real change. Emma watched all of this unfold with a sense of pride and awe. She had started this journey hoping to help one man, but it had grown into something so much bigger. Jack's story had touched thousands of lives, inspiring acts of kindness that rippled far beyond Baton Rouge. Emma knew that this was only the beginning. There were so many others like Jack, people who had given so much but were struggling silently. She made it her mission to continue telling those stories, to shine a light on those who had been forgotten, and to bring people together in the name of compassion. One sunny afternoon, as Jack and Emma sat on the porch of Jack's new apartment, sipping iced tea and watching the world go by, Jack turned to Emma with a smile. "You know, Emma," he said, his voice filled with gratitude, "I never thought I'd live to see a day like this. To think that so many people cared enough to help an old man like me. It's a miracle." Emma reached over and patted Jack's hand. "It's not a miracle, Jack," she replied softly. "It's just people doing what's right. And you deserve every bit of it." Jack nodded, his eyes misting over. He knew that he had been given a second chance, a chance to live his life without the constant burden of worry and hardship, and he was determined to make the most of it. Jack spent his days enjoying the simple pleasures he had long been denied: quiet mornings with a cup of coffee, afternoons spent volunteering at the church, evenings filled with laughter and conversation with friends, both old and new. Jack's journey from struggling veteran to beloved community figure was a testament to the power of human kindness. It showed that when people came together, they could create real, lasting change. Jack often said that the greatest gift he had received wasn't the money or the new apartment. It was the knowledge that people still cared, that he wasn't alone, and that his life had value. As the sun began to set that day, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink, Jack looked out at the world before him and smiled. He had faced hardship, he had struggled, but he had never given up. And now, thanks to the kindness of strangers and the determination of a woman who refused to look away, Jack Turner could finally live the life he had always deserved. A life filled with peace, purpose, and the warmth of knowing he was truly cared for. Months later, Jack Turner's story continued to spread, eventually catching the attention of the local news. It wasn't long before it gained national recognition. People from all walks of life were captivated by the story of a 90-year-old veteran who had faced unimaginable hardship, only to be lifted up by the kindness of strangers. News outlets praised Emma Dawson for her compassion and Jack for his resilience. The story became a symbol of hope, a reminder of the power of collective kindness and what people could achieve when they came together for a common cause. Jack's journey also sparked a broader conversation about the challenges faced by elderly veterans. His story highlighted the gaps in support systems, and advocacy groups began pushing for change. They demanded better financial assistance, healthcare, and housing options for veterans who, like Jack, had given everything for their country but were left struggling to make ends meet in their golden years. The outpouring of support for Jack became a rallying cry, and soon, local governments and non-profit organizations began working together to create better support networks for veterans. Jack had unknowingly become the face of a movement, one that aimed to ensure that no veteran would ever be left behind again. For Emma, the experience was life-changing. She had always believed in the power of storytelling, but witnessing the real-world impact of Jack's story firsthand had reinforced her belief in the goodness of people. "When we come together, we can achieve incredible things," she said during a community event celebrating Jack's newfound stability. Emma continued to use her platform to advocate for others who were struggling, determined to shine a light on those who needed help. She realized that Jack's story was just the beginning. There were countless others who needed their voices heard. Jack, meanwhile, was overwhelmed by the attention. He had never sought fame, and he certainly hadn't expected to become a symbol of hope for so many people. But as the days turned into weeks and the weeks into months, Jack began to understand just how much his story meant to others. He received letters from people across the country, fellow veterans who had faced similar struggles, young people who had been inspired by his resilience, and families who wanted to thank him for his service. Jack read every letter, often with tears in his eyes, knowing that he was no longer alone. Jack lived out his remaining years with dignity and joy, surrounded by a community that cherished him. He spent his days volunteering at the local church, sharing his story at community events, and visiting with friends and neighbors who had become like family. The grocery store where he had once worked became a frequent stop for Jack, not to push carts, but to chat with old colleagues and greet the customers who recognized him from the news. Jack loved those moments of connection, the simple acts of kindness that had once been a rare occurrence in his life, but were now a daily blessing. Emma and Jack remained close friends. They often met for lunch or sat on Jack's porch, watching the world go by and reminiscing about the journey that had brought them together. Emma marveled at how much had changed since that fateful day in the grocery store parking lot. What had started as a simple desire to help one man had grown into something so much bigger, a movement that had touched thousands of lives. Jack's story had become a beacon of hope, a reminder that even in times of division and uncertainty, there was still so much good in the world. One summer afternoon, Emma organized a community event to honor Jack and the impact his story had made. People gathered in the park, young and old, veterans and civilians alike. There were speeches, music, and a sense of togetherness that filled the air. Jack was asked to speak, and he stood before the crowd, his voice steady despite the emotion that welled within him. "I never thought I'd be here," Jack began, looking out at the faces before him. "I never thought that so many people would care about an old man pushing carts in the heat. But you did. You saw me. You helped me. And I want you to know that I am forever grateful, not just for the money or the new home, but for the love and kindness you've shown me. It's something I'll carry with me for the rest of my days." The crowd erupted in applause, and Jack felt his heart swell with gratitude. It wasn't the applause that mattered. It was the sense of connection, the knowledge that he had made a difference. Jack had always believed in the value of hard work and resilience, but now he understood the power of community, of people coming together to lift each other up. As the sun began to set that day, Emma stood beside Jack, her arm around his shoulders. She looked out at the crowd, the children playing, the families laughing, the veterans sharing stories. It was a scene of unity, of hope, and of the goodness that could be found in the most unexpected places. Jack Turner's legacy was not one of struggle and hardship. It was one of kindness, of resilience, and of the power of people to create change. Jack's story became a lasting reminder that even in the face of hardship, compassion and unity could create transformative change. It showed that when people chose to see each other, to really see each other, they could achieve incredible things. Jack had found peace, but more importantly, he had found purpose. And in doing so, he had inspired countless others to look beyond themselves, to reach out a helping hand, and to believe in the power of kindness. Jack Turner's story is not just about a 90-year-old veteran overcoming hardship. It is a testament to the profound impact of one person's decision to take action. Emma Dawson's willingness to step forward, coupled with the community's overwhelming response, showed that kindness knows no boundaries and that compassion can bridge even the widest divides. Through her simple yet powerful gesture, Emma sparked a movement that inspired countless people to join her in helping Jack, a movement that would continue to create ripples of hope and change long after Jack's immediate needs had been met. When Emma first met Jack, she was struck by his resilience. Here was a man who had dedicated his life to serving his country, yet he had been forgotten, left to struggle in his twilight years without the security he deserved. For Emma, it wasn't just about helping one man. It was about sending a message to the world that everyone deserves dignity, respect, and care, no matter their age or their circumstances. She saw in Jack not just a veteran, but a symbol of all those who had been left behind by a society that often forgets its most vulnerable members. Jack's story quickly resonated with people across the country, inspiring them to take action in their own communities. The donations that poured in were more than just money. They were a collective statement that Jack's life mattered, that his sacrifices had not been in vain. The letters and messages of support that Jack received were filled with heartfelt words from strangers who saw him as a hero, someone who embodied the values of hard work, resilience, and humility. These messages weren't just about Jack. They were about all the Jacks out there who had given so much and yet asked for so little in return. Jack's journey also sparked important conversations about the broader challenges faced by elderly veterans. It became clear that Jack's struggle was not unique, but rather a reflection of the systemic issues that many veterans faced: insufficient financial support, lack of access to healthcare, and the feeling of being forgotten. Advocacy groups seized on Jack's story as a rallying cry, pushing for changes that would ensure no veteran would ever have to endure the hardships Jack had faced. In this way, Jack's story became a catalyst for change, not just for him, but for countless others who had walked a similar path. For Emma, the experience reinforced her belief in the power of human connection. She had always known that storytelling could be a force for good, but witnessing the impact of Jack's story firsthand made her realize just how powerful that force could be. Emma continued to tell the stories of those who had been overlooked, using her platform to shine a light on the struggles of others and to remind people of their shared humanity. She knew that Jack's story was just the beginning, that there were so many others who needed their voices to be heard, and she was determined to be their advocate. Jack, meanwhile, found a renewed sense of purpose. No longer burdened by the weight of financial insecurity, he embraced his role as a community figure, someone who could inspire others and make a difference. He volunteered at the local church, shared his story at community events, and continued to work part-time at the grocery store, not because he had to, but because he wanted to stay connected to the people who had become his extended family. Jack understood that his story was bigger than himself. It was a story of resilience, compassion, and the power of people coming together to lift each other up. The impact of Jack's story went far beyond the money that was raised or the attention it received in the media. It touched the hearts of people who had never met Jack, inspiring them to take action in their own communities, to help their neighbors, to reach out to those in need, to be the light in someone else's darkness. It reminded people that even the smallest gestures of kindness could lead to monumental change, that a single act of compassion could transform a life and inspire others to do the same. Jack lived out his remaining years with dignity, surrounded by a community that cherished him. He often spoke of the gratitude he felt, not just for the financial support that had allowed him to live comfortably, but for the love and kindness that had been shown to him by people from all walks of life. Jack knew that he had been given a second chance, and he made the most of it, spending his days surrounded by friends, sharing his story, and giving back to the community that had given him so much. As Jack's life drew to a close, his legacy was already firmly established. He had become a symbol of hope, a reminder that even in the face of adversity, there was still goodness in the world. His story was a testament to the power of human kindness, of what could happen when people chose to see each other, to really see each other, and to act out of love rather than indifference. Jack Turner's journey from a struggling veteran to a beloved community figure was proof that when people come together, they can achieve incredible things. To honor Jack's legacy, let us continue to look out for one another and strive to make a difference, no matter how small. Let us remember that every act of kindness, no matter how seemingly insignificant, has the power to change a life. Jack's story is a reminder that we are all connected, that our actions have the power to create ripples of change that extend far beyond what we can see. In doing so, we keep alive the spirit of humanity that transformed Jack's life and inspired countless others. And perhaps, just perhaps, we can create a world where no one is left behind, and where kindness and compassion are the forces that guide us all.